Hello and welcome to the Red Bra Project. We are so excited to be back with you guys all tonight. Hello friends, we hope everybody's doing well. We're here with episode number 57 tonight and sharing my Zoom screen this evening. I know you recognize my co-host over there and our incredible guest we're gonna introduce here in a moment. But Shauna, I want to say a quick hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Hanging in there? Things are slowly opening where I am, so that feels good. The rest of the country, I think, has been open for months, but we're holding down strong here in New England.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things you take week by week anymore. So I think everyone's learning how to roll with it. So
Absolutely. Well, you look beautiful. Good to see you.
you too. You too. It's always great to see you. And I love that we're going to be able to get back into our summer series. And to kick it off tonight, we actually had a connection. One of our past guests, Dr. Summer Watson, she's so amazing, has introduced us to our guest tonight. So thank you, Summer. Connections are incredible. We're always excited to meet new and, amazing women so we can share our stories and we can learn from each other. So tonight I would like to introduce you to Sejal Thakkar. She has an incredible story that I'm not going to give it all away. And I say that at the beginning because just getting to know you a little bit, Sejal, it's going through your own experiences from childhood to where you've been led to today. You know, it's one of those things where we say our experiences and things that happen to us really shape and mold us. But I think that your story is going to be incredible tonight. So Sejal is the founder and chief civility officer of TrainXtra. So she's a labor and employment lawyer, but her passion is truly just incredible, and we're going to learn more about that. So welcome to the Red Bra Project, Sejal.
Oh my God, thank you ladies so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. Yeah, so you know what, first I want to say before we even get into anything, I think what you two ladies are doing with the show is amazing. When I went and looked at all your prior episodes and just to get a feel for it, I mean, I think that our voices are so powerful. And so what you're doing by giving me a space here on your show, I'm totally humbled and grateful. Thank you for that. So one of the things I wanted to just start us off with today was this idea of, you know, how we're all unique. And I love looking at the both of you right now because we're all so different. And I think just where we are in the world right now, I think it's important that we try to talk about topics that are going to help us help others. And one of the things that I thought we can kind of talk about what I do right now is I'm focusing a lot of my work and my training on civility in the workplace, you know, so really kind of helping organizations create a culture of dignity and respect. So regardless of our differences, regardless of the color of our skin or our religions, that when we come to work, we really treat everybody with dignity and respect because we all want that. And so that's one area that I'm really passionate about right now. And then the other area is talking about bias. And you know, that's where my personal story kind of comes into it, is where when I grew up, you know, my parents came from India in 1974. And I was actually conceived in India and born in Chicago. So I mean, talk about being marginal, right? I mean, you can't really get any more marginal than that. And where I grew up was a little suburb called Elmwood Park. And we were the only Indian family in an all Italian neighborhood. And so this was back in, you know, 74, and as I grew up, I just dealt with a lot of bullying and discrimination because we were the only Indian family. We had the darker skin. My parents had the accent. Yes, they owned the convenience store, you know, the typical kind of immigrant family. And so having grown up with that, and, you know, when I was growing up, I asked that question a lot, like, why are, you know, I mean, I didn't have a choice where I was born or who I was born to, yet I was being kind of made to feel like some other, you know, and like people would ask questions like, you know, go back to your country. And that's because they assumed I was from somewhere else. And so I'm like, wait a second. So I always kind of felt like an outsider. And so it's awesome right now is that part of the work that I do, I can actually talk to people about their biases and help them understand that so they don't, you know, because it's not malicious a lot of the times, right? I don't blame those kids when they were making fun of me. I mean, they're a product of their own upbringing, right? But I think that we have to do something about it. And so I just kind of use my voice to do what I can to kind of help raise awareness on those issues.
Sejal, just listening to parts of your story and knowing what you experienced as a child in your family, Did you have siblings, or do you have siblings?
Yeah, I'm the oldest, and then I have a younger brother that's 4 years younger than me, and then my little sister is 13 years younger than me. So a huge difference there.
So not only, did you experience everything like that as a child, but you were also the oldest. And with the oldest, anybody who's the oldest of siblings also knows there's a little bit of a protector role sometimes. And
Oh yeah.
you do tend to look out after your siblings. Before we kind of get into the amazing, important work that you are doing now, which I think is so needed, gosh, how did you deal and work through some of that stuff as a child?
Yeah, I mean, it was at the time was different back then. We really didn't have a lot of support, I
Right.
mean, like right now we've got all the support that we're complaining about what we have right now, but back then there was nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, I literally had nobody in my family I can talk to, right? Because at home, I was expected to be that good little Indian girl, right? Wear the Indian clothes, learn the Indian language, speak, engage in all the culture, which I love, by the way, but be part of that Indian culture. I mean, my parents didn't even know how to speak English when they moved here, right? So at home, we were speaking so it's like being in a different world. And then when I'm out of the house, I'm expected to be part of the American culture, which I love, right? And so you're at school, you're seeing things that are done completely different than the way they're done at home. And you're trying to fit in everywhere. And it's just, I mean, there's good things that came out of that, right? I mean, I got very good at navigating through some tough situations because I had to code switch. I had to fit into different places and assimilate. And so you get really good at kind of understanding people at a very basic human level when you kind of go through those kind of situations. But there was no support. I mean, there was nobody at school I can go to. There was nobody at home. There really wasn't anybody. I mean, I had a couple mentors that were sprinkled in, but it wasn't until I got to, I would say, college, was there really any support. So really, I think I decided early on, and I remember that. I remember, because we've all been through something where we've been bullied or discriminated for some reason. And if you think back to that moment, like the first time, I go back to the first time I ever experienced that, and I think if each of you did that too, or anybody listening, you put yourself back there, you really have to make a choice at that point. Am I going to become the victim of this and I'm going to just turn now against everybody and hate on everybody? Or am I going to take a different approach and understand that it's not their fault, they're a product of their own environment, and I'm going to go on the other side of that fence and I'm going to try to help do it differently. And I chose that path, and there's nothing wrong with either one. It's just, people deal with it differently. That's just the way I chose to deal with it. But that meant that I had to pull my walls up really early on. I really had to grow up a lot quicker, so there's some sacrifices you have to make to get through it. But in the end, I think everything happens for a reason. And all of that struggle that I went through really, I think, is a reason why I could do this right now. And what I'm doing is because I can relate to that struggle, having gone through it, but also relate to understanding the other side of it. We're all just trying our best, and it's not always easy. And some of these situations are super tricky, and we have to learn how to navigate through it without our own resources. Like me, I didn't have anybody telling me, do it this way or do it this way. I just had to kind of make a choice and keep marching forward, and it wasn't
And
easy, and I wasn't
how
perfect.
old would you say you were when you made that decision? You were
It
still
was
young.
early. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I dealt with a lot of verbal harassment, people kind of saying things like making fun of the color of my skin, like calling me brownie, or because my mom would wear the dot in her head, they would call me Dot, and things like that. So that started like pretty early on. But I think it wasn't until where there was like graffiti on our house or toilet paper TP'd on our house. But when it came close to the house like that, I think that's where I noticed I started acting out in school. I was becoming more vocal. I was fighting back, and I got suspended one time for like standing up for something that. And so I started noticing that I was reacting to what was going on, and that's where I consciously had to say, okay, this is not the path I don't want to go down that way. And believe me, it was really hard. It was really hard, and I coped with it in the best way possible, and probably not the best at all times, right? But yeah.
No, it's impressive, and I mean, it just shows the strength you've had for so many years, because I think it would be really easy to sit in that suffering and to be the victim, but
Yeah.
to have that forward thinking and to know this this isn't going to get me the farthest in life. And so to make that choice is just commendable.
I think, ultimately, I really truly believe, and this is one of the things that has been my guiding kind of principle for just when I make decisions in life, is I remind myself that ultimately the things that we have in common are that we want to be treated with dignity and respect. And at the end of the day, like when you strip everything away, when you strip away our money and our careers and everything else, and you're literally just standing there looking at yourself in the mirror and truly looking into your soul, I think the one thing we all want is to relate to one another. Relatability, right? Like I want to relate to somebody else, and that's really what it boils down to. And I think because I was a minority and I grew up in a majority minority sort of dynamic, I'm able to see that on both sides and relate to everybody. And so it's just, it's luck that I can blend that sort of philosophy that I've held with my career and be able to like, just be me and really just call things out and say it the way I see it. And it's just how it is. But I think we all do that. I think sometimes, mine's more public and because I could blend it with my career, but I think I've been talking to so many amazing women. It's unreal how people have gone through these struggles. I mean, a lot of the ones that Summer I said on our podcast, what you two ladies have shown. I mean, I think it's just that we're finally getting a voice. We've suppressed it for so long. We haven't talked about our stories. Like vulnerability has been something that's been like, you can't even bring your personal self to work. They're saying leave that at home. And I'm like, really? Yeah, okay. That's not going to happen. Right? So
those days are behind us. I mean, there's just so much that is being blended and that, we're trying to learn to navigate. And like you said, when you were younger, learning how to do it, you said, it wasn't perfect. You didn't do it right all the time. And that's okay. I mean, how in the world does anybody know how to do anything aside from when you do it the first time, I mean, that's how you learn. I mean, so when we're trying to learn how to be better humans and better with people and more respectful and learning about different cultures and things, I think there is a degree of forgiveness that almost has to lie in there because you learn and then you do better next time, with a good intention. So I guess listening to you and your story and obviously your experiences led you to your career. Did you just knew in your heart immediately which route you wanted to take? Is that fair to say?
I would say my dad actually, it was around when I was 8 or 9 years old, because like I said earlier, I would ask why all the time. Why are they saying that? Why? And I would say it to both my parents, because my parents were doing it too. My parents are on one hand were like, don't stay out in the sun too long because we don't want you to get too dark. And I'm like, what's wrong with being dark? Yeah. So I was questioning things at home and I was questioning things outside of the home. And it was just, like I remember one time we were in the store together. They owned a convenience store and it happened to be right across from our elementary school. So all the kids would come in there for buying their candy or whatever. And I remember one time, a black teenager walked in and my dad made some comment like, keep a close eye on him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why? And he's like, he didn't say anything, but I knew what he meant. And I go, Dad, that's not cool. That's racist. You know that. And I remember him saying to me, he's like, what do you mean I'm racist? I mean, I'm experiencing racism myself. How could I be racist? So I was like, what? So it's just like, I was already doing this at a very young age. And that was around 8 or 9 years old. And so at dinner, I think it was like shortly after that incident at dinner one time, he told my mom, and it could have been around there. And he said, she's going to be a lawyer. There's no question about it because she just keeps asking why. And he was right. So I am a lawyer now and I still ask why all the time. And that's probably never going to change. But I think that, because of that, I have an authentic curiosity for other people and their stories. And so I genuinely want to learn about other people and really know that like nobody's better than anybody else. And why would I want to miss out on your journey and what you've been through because I'm locked up in my head? And it's not easy, but I think having been on that side and on the receiving side of it, it just kind of makes you stronger and you just don't, you don't have your thick skin, so you don't let things get to you as much as if you didn't put yourself in those situations. But guess what, man? That gives you a lot of street smart. you can go into any neighborhood and I'm not going to be afraid of anything, you know? And I mean, it's just, there's different skills that come out of it. But I think we all just need to be better about how do we make sure that we don't let things like that continue to happen to other people. Like that needs to change, like in no unequivocal terms now. It needs to happen. And I'm just out there doing what I can to try to get people on this train, because I'm like, you need to get on it right now. And being quiet and silent about it right now is it's not going to work. I think people are just done. They're fed up. And, you know, it's a perfect time to also just be positive and give people hope. And just give people some sense of control over their lives, because we all feel so powerless with everything that's going on. And so, like, you know, just that simple thing of like giving somebody tools, simple tools that they can start using to learn about their own bias so that they can improve their relationship and take control of their life. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that? Doesn't, you know, it's a no-brainer. So
I think you're absolutely right that people are ready for it. They're fed up. I'm curious if you know much about this canceled culture that we're experiencing, where individuals are essentially, things they've said in the past are coming back and they're being canceled or whatnot. And so the thought of forgiveness and is there growth for them to improve? I think that's just such a relevant topic, especially with Gen Z, because they are so connected to this social media. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And this is the core of it, right? I mean, I hate when you put stereotypes like that in there, canceled culture or this culture or the millennials versus, you know, forget, this is the problem. That's the core of bias, right? It's when we start making these quick judgments about people and stereotypes that don't have any facts to really support it. You know, and so, no, it's not about calling anybody out. It's about calling people in and saying, like, you haven't lived in my shoes, so obviously you don't understand and see life the same way that I do, and that's okay. But let's make some time to work on that, because whether you like it or not, we have to be together. We are sharing this journey together, whether you like it or not. And so, and especially when you're in the workplace, right? I mean, globalization, I mean, diversity and inclusion is no longer nice to have. It's a thing, whether you like it or not. It's happening, and that's what's causing all this conflict. It's because people don't know what to do when there's all this diversity happening, right? Because it brings challenges. When we get three different perspectives right here, when we don't all look the same, when we're three different women right here, it's going to take us a little bit longer to get to a decision, to make a choice, because we're going to have to learn about what we each like and what our perspective is, versus if we all were three, you know, white women of the same age group, whatever, then maybe we can get it quicker because we live life in a similar way, maybe went through similar things. But when you don't, so there's definitely challenges to that. But the thing is, once you commit to doing the work, you can easily do it. It's not easy. I should say easily. I'm saying there's practical tips and tools that can make it easy for you. Right. But that's what the thing is. It's making that commitment to doing the work, because it's going to take time. You can't just say, okay, there, it's all sit in one like training and then all your biases are gone. No, it's an ongoing process, but absolutely. And it's not canceled. Nobody's canceled, right? The whole point is bringing people in the right way. And that's what I saw as an attorney is a lot of these cases were ending up in court because people were put in these situations and they just didn't know how to properly resolve that conflict, you know, so they either didn't do anything about it or they reacted to it and they didn't handle it properly. So we want to make sure that people are doing it and calling people in with the proper way of doing it. So with non-judgment, in a non-confrontational, you know, way to just put the person on awareness, you know, to let them know, because not everybody is going to know what your boundaries are. Right? I can't know just by looking at you what you're going to like, what you do. I can make some speculations, and most of them are probably going to be wrong. Right? That's the whole thing about unconscious bias. It's our brain's way of processing information, and because there's so much information coming at us, the error rate when we make these spontaneous judgments is extremely high. Extremely high. Right? Yeah.
Sejal, I would imagine that when you are you're pretty much just doing you're doing Zoom training right now, right? Are you, okay. But prior to that, you would go into the workplace or into the meeting rooms and things like that. And so in both circumstances though, are people surprised, I'm sure, when you bring up different exercises and things to recognize some of the bias they may have, but not be aware of it? I mean, people, is it fair to say that, I mean, everybody has a little bit at some point or another, you may or may not be aware of, and just seeing that from your perspective and watching kind of the light bulb moment, and then training and teaching people to recognize that sounds like it would almost be a very long commitment. But how does that work in the workplace when you show up to bring these tools to people?
Yeah, I mean, look, 90% of what we do on a daily basis is done unconsciously. So we think we're walking around making deliberate, intentional, conscious choices. It's the opposite. It's very little of our decision making is based on our conscious choices. So 90% is habitual. Is habitual. So when you're doing things like tying your shoelaces and, combing your hair or brushing your teeth, you're in autopilot mode. So we live 90% of our life in autopilot mode. So that means these hidden biases, they're deep. So it is a long commitment processes. And it's not that it's normal. It's not that it's a bad thing. And that's why I don't even use the word bias when I do my trainings. I call it unconscious beliefs. They say there are, just to give you an idea, Harvard came out with this study. They said our brains processes close to 11 million pieces of information per second through our 5 senses. 11 million per second. So there's no way we could survive unless our brain automatically took all of that information and dumped it into different buckets in our brain. And then that stuff is going to come out in a spontaneous judgment based on very little factual information, based on your own subjective perception. And so the error rate is extremely high, right? So that's why, and it's normal. It's not about shame. It's not about judgment. It's none of that. It's just our brain's way of processing information. Some literature, when you read it, they don't even call it unconscious bias. They call it like different parts of your consciousness, right? So sub part A or B, and they talk about how this is normal. But the problem is that if you're not aware of what these potential beliefs are, right, then it might interfere with your decision making or how you react or how you respond to somebody without even knowing about it. So it's going to happen unconsciously. Right? So there are tools, though, that can help you learn about what those are. And then as you start doing the work to make sure that you're checking that or you're combating those biases, it gets easier over time. So now I can almost feel it when I'm doing it, because I'm practicing and I'm consciously checking my biases. That when it starts to happen, I'm like, okay, wait, whoa, there it is. And then I can go, nope, I'm not. I'm going to make my decision not on just how I'm subjectively perceived. Are there facts? Are there facts to confirm this? And most of the time your answer is going to be no. And that's where you have to combat it. And there's different techniques that you can use to combat your bias.
Really gives new perspective to the whole creatures of habit.
Oh yeah, 90%. Yeah.
I'm curious, so your work with Civility and going into these, different workplaces, how often is it a team effort that everybody wants these sessions or more often than not, is it a top-down decision? And do you see that there's one that works better than the other?
Yeah, I mean, it's all over the place. There was a lot of, with the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, lots of organizations, you saw that on social media, were issuing these grand, commitments, and then they were hiring, so there was some of that. And then there truly are organizations that really do care about their culture and their people, and they are authentically wanting to make a change. Because the thing is, what's happened over the years is that a lot of this behavior that I call incivility in the workplace, it's gotten normalized in a lot of these organizations, especially when you start going up in the chain of command. You start seeing this really unprofessional, uncivil behavior happening because it's happened for so long. We heard about like Harvey Weinstein and all these other executives in the Me Too movement, and you're like, how the heck did you get away with that for 30 years? Right? And then everybody knew about it too, and they still got away with it. So it's nothing new what I'm saying, but it's organizations really have to not just say they're going to do something. It's got to be more than just lip service. It's got to be making sure that you have that as a core value, making sure you have the person that's designated to make sure that the entire fabric of your organization has that embedded, making sure you got the policies, the structures. So it's really got to be a holistic plan to achieve it. And everybody has to be on board. It's not going to work if it's just management that's on board and the employees aren't, because the employees are the ones that make up the culture. So it's a team effort. It has to be. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Do you also work with individuals?
So I do a lot of individual training for individuals to help them, like, for example, how to communicate, how to recognize their own bias. I do a lot of, just general like sexual harassment training and things like that. But usually it's when I'm hired in through the organization and then I'm providing that training. Although the last year I've been doing a lot more public speaking. So I'm speaking at a lot of conferences and talking to a lot of people that way. And then after COVID, I've been doing just so many webinars and podcasts and really trying to help employees sort of deal with so many of these new issues that we've had to deal with these past few months that are just been unprecedented, right? So there's so many new issues that have come out that it's on everybody needs guidance on these, because we've never dealt with some of these issues before.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got to be extremely busy right now because your resources, your tools, your coping strategies, everything's so needed, especially as we do try to learn and navigate all of this that's happening right now. So
yeah. It's a
Um,
hard time. It's a different time. And I think we need to be prepared for how do we move forward. And, I think what I tell leaders all day long is empathy. It's like, people keep saying we're all dealing with the same thing. And yeah, we're dealing with the pandemic together, sure. But what each one of us is going through is so unique and different that you can't follow your rigid leadership style. You got to be flexible. And I almost feel like I'm not even an attorney right now. I'm more of a therapist. Seriously.
I was going to say, I feel like, do you also have a degree in psychology?
I should.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely are playing both sides of that. And I think that's important because of the work that you do, though. I think that you have to have that counseling background and kind of sense for people and individuals and what they're feeling, because the work you're doing is important, but it's heavy too. And so just as much as there's those deep-rooted bias, there's some triggers that people may have too. And so your genuine approach and your empathy, I think is what is drawing people to you. It's drawing me to you tonight. So I'm like, I can't get enough of this.
Yay. Yeah. No, but I think it's, and I'm telling you, I'm seeing good things right now. I mean, it's horrible what's going on in the world, and it's just tragic that we're losing all these lives and everything. But there are some good things happening. There are some serious conversations. I'm seeing organizations step up in ways, and I've been dealing with organizations since 2003. They're stepping up in ways that they never have. And it's not just for the one-time thing. Like, they're looking at their culture and they're really identifying the gaps. And so it's good from that perspective, because trust me, you both know this. I mean, it's so hard to stay positive when you look at the news and you look at, I had to literally cut myself off of Twitter for a whole month. I had to just say, I'm done. I can't, because it's just everything was so negative. So I think the more that we can do to light flames and really just kind of motivate and inspire people, it's going to be good for everybody.
I love that perspective. And thank you so much for sharing that, because there is a lot of people that, we're struggling with the global issues. We're struggling with personal issues. Everybody's being impacted in some way. And then we have a larger scale way as well. And so to hear a bit of positivity that there is some really great changes happening from someone who is working with these larger corporations and in a working environment is really, really good. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. And it's happening on an individual level too. I see more people actually being honest with themselves and saying, I want to learn about what my unconscious beliefs might be. And I really care about my relationships, and I want to improve, and I want to learn. And it's this whole thing about just that, people, that's the first step. That's the first step to making that sort of commitment to say, I want to just learn. And that's really, if we can get people there, and that's my goal, is whenever I'm doing a training, it's like, I want to just get you here. If I can get you here, I've done my job, and now you'll do your job, but that's that process of just getting people from tolerating everything to really understanding it and committing to making a difference, but it's happening, and I'm going to just stay optimistic, because I kind of like think about it like, it can't get any worse than it is right now. And what better time to just switch it, because this is the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, it's not done
perfect.
Yeah. It's a perfect
opportunity. No, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And I think people are getting more comfortable with speaking up. And that's a huge thing. And we've never had the internet before like this. I mean, this is a powerful tool that we can use. We've had other civil rights movements and we've had other things, but we haven't had the power of the internet. And so by using our voices in the right way with the internet, we could spread the message a lot further to get to more people, because people are sort of trying to like make those waves, but we need to kind of find a way to get them all collectively happening together, so.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you're so right with the internet. And I think, I've said this as people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Well, it's been happening for years, but everybody's been home and they're tied to their devices, and they were able to not have all this other noise and be able to hear it. And so I don't know, I'm trying to find the positive in the pandemic. And I think that if it has shed light for others to know that, yes, this has been going on, but if you want to take action now, then welcome to the table.
Yeah. And the other thing it did too is it didn't discriminate. It didn't care if you were white, black, brown, gray, whatever, purple. It didn't care. I mean, anybody can get it. And that really just equalized everybody. It's like now we're scared about our own family. And you were stuck at home. And so if you didn't like your home, you had to face your home. And so much for not being in your home. Now you're working from home. So your work is coming to you in your house. You're seeing people like we've never seen before. Right? I mean, it changed. Talk about a light switch. I mean, talk about a switch, complete switch.
And it was so quick. I mean, it was just
so quick
as far as that and the complete environmental things changing. But you talk a little bit about, the us versus them mentality. And this is really just kind of everything that's happened in 2020 is almost put a fast forward on, okay, let's bring it to the surface. Let's talk about it. Let's learn how to talk about it, which is really, I think that's an important word, learning. And like you said, if you're finding that more people are open, and I think that's so cool. And if somebody, I mean, I know a lot of our viewers are going to listen in, but do you have any tools or resources or places you can point an individual who comes to your website or something like that? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so you could come to my website. It's TrainXtra.com. LinkedIn would be a great place if you want to connect with me, because I am all about sharing resources, and I'm constantly putting out like handouts, brochures, policies, anything that I come across that I'm like, people need to see this. So I think that sharing information, especially good information right now, there's so much crap that is out there. Like, seriously, I don't know what to believe sometimes, right? You look at two different websites and you see conflicting information, and I'm like, who, so I think we have to be really careful where we get our information right now. So LinkedIn would be the way to go. And I think, look, people need to work on their own bias. And so I'm just going to put this tool out there for the people, implicit association test. It's an online tool. They call it a test. I don't even like calling it a test. I like to call it a tool, because it's not like you pass or fail. You take it and then it's free, first of all. And it was put out by Harvard University and several of these big universities. The psychologists got together. They created this online tool. And you could sit down in the privacy of your own home. It's broken out into different sections, and take it. And it'll identify for you potential areas of bias, right? It doesn't hurt. And it's just for you to know. It doesn't make you a bad person, but just for you to understand what these beliefs are, because you'll learn so much about yourself. And then once you know about it, and you're about to make a decision, or you're about to interact with somebody, that'll pop into your head that, whoa, okay, make sure that I'm not making it because of this potential belief that I hold or preconceived notion that I have, but I'm really basing it on what's here in front of me. And it's just, it's so valuable, and I think there's so many positive benefits for it. So that's the one thing I'm going to just say, that if you could do anything to kind of want to understand more about yourself and how you could be a better ally, or how you can just sort of help us move past everything that's going on is to start working on your own bias and start learning about that.
That's fantastic. And we will definitely link it for all of our followers so that they can find you on LinkedIn and also take that tool as well.
That's an awesome tool. I mean, that's so good. Yeah, Shauna, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, no, your mouth was open. I saw you.
Well, I was gonna ask the big question. So.
Oh, okay. Before we get to the big question, no pressure.
No pressure.
I was gonna ask. I mean, we've talked so much about, you know, a little bit of snippets of your growing up that led you here, and your incredible work and your fresh perspective. I love it. But a little bit just personal about Sejal. But how do you seem like such a strong woman, and I don't think that is, I'm confident in saying that, but how everybody deals with fear. So how do you deal with fear? How do you push through something that may be intimidating to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, whenever somebody says, like, if you could describe yourself in one word, what would that be? And for me, it would be resilience. I'm the queen of resilience. I mean, I have been, you know, the cards have been dealt against me so many times that, like, you get to a point where it's just like who you are now. It's just who you are. There's no other option, you know? So that's what kind of, but when I get in those situations, and it's happened a lot, I practicing gratitude, you know, just start, I literally in my head, my son thinks I talk to myself, you know, but I just literally, I start counting. I just start counting. 1, I'm grateful for my son. 2, I'm grateful for this. 3, and I just count and I count and I count. And sometimes I have to count to 30 or 40 before, but at some point, the chemistry starts to change in my mind, and that forgiveness that you talked about earlier starts to happen. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, the emotions, because we're really, when we're in fear, it's just our brain's emotional state of mind that we become victims, we become prisoners of our own mind, right? And so changing my focus and shifting my perspective to that, practicing gratefulness, which we know there's lots of science benefits and all it does for our brain and our bodies, but that's been my tool. And I even got to a point where things were really hard, is I would make a list of what I was grateful for on paper and externalize it, and be something about just taking it out of my brain and putting it down on paper and reading it just kind of helps also. Right. So that's what I've done to kind of navigate my way back to this point. And it wasn't always beautiful. So, you know, but that's what I do.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then you shared tools that work as well. I mean, we should create a whole new show, Wake Up with Sejal.
Right? I just wrote down, I was like, start counting, because I need that. I need that motivation.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, so when you break fear down like that, it's like, I'm not going to let, you know, my crazy emotions get the best of me. You know, I can control this. So I love it. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so here's a book for you that I'm going to share with you that's amazing on this one. Is called The Untethered Soul, right? And it's Michael Singer. I'm doing the audiobook right now. I think I'm in chapter 6 or 7, and I'm into it. You girls will love it. It is amazing. And it's right what we're talking about right now, about just understanding that our thoughts and how we're feeling are actually not us. They don't define us. We are actually the ones that are observing those, and it helps you separate yourself from your fear and your thoughts and your emotions, and how you can learn to be an observer. And so then when you get to that point, they don't have the same impact on you. And it's just, it's powerful. So
I love it.
Untethered Soul. All right. I'm taking so many notes. I just keep writing them as if I can't go back and rewatch this. But.
Right. Or reach out to me anytime.
Exactly.
Right?
So foreshadowing, I have a big question for you. So I know you've done research on us, and I think you've seen kind of the meaning behind the red bra, but really when Renee and I came up with it, it was thinking of those big or small moments that we have that were just like, yeah, I did it, and I felt confident, and I had my red bra on, whether people could see it or not, and I feel good about what happened. Can you share a moment like that of yours?
Yeah, and I love the red bra. I mean, that's just like the coolest thing ever. Seriously, I'm a huge fan, huge fan. I'll be talking about you guys for a long time. Let me tell
Thank
you.
you.
No, seriously, because I just love the whole concept. So I think for me, it's my son is my life. He really is. He's 8, and I try to live my life through his lens as much as possible. I really do, because he came out and he was way wiser than me. It was just, it's one of those kids you see and you're like, okay, that's an old soul, and he is an old soul from the minute he was born. And he schools me all day long, all the time, right? But he teaches me just how beautiful life is. And I think, like, when you going back to that question you had about fear, a lot of that is, I think, us healing certain parts of us, and a lot of us are just kind of always, I don't know if you two have ever said this, but I've said this to myself, like, I'm just looking for that little girl in me, that got lost along the way. I think a lot of us, we say that to ourselves, right? Or trying to get back to that. But when he came, it was very clear that I was going back to that. And every day I try to be present with him. And so my red bra moments are like, there was a couple of trainings he came with me to, because there was no homeschooling, and he was at home with me, and I had to train. It was a weekend. It was the city of Dublin in California, and I was training their life, what do you call it? Those life attendants, sexual harassment training, right? So he came with me to that training. And so, he was little at this point. He was probably 5 years old, or 6 years old. And so he came with me, and I had him sit in the front row, and he had his little iPad, and he was sitting there, and I did my presentation. He watched me, and then later on we left. And so this was the first time he did it to me. But then later on, we'd be talking to somebody else, and they'd be like, oh, what does mommy do for a living? Or he'll just bust out with the story. He's like, yeah, mommy tells people not to harass each other. And he said, sexually harass each other. Like, that's my kid right there. Yes, I'm doing something right. But he's the only person. I mean, honestly, he's the one I'm trying to impress. That my life is to impress him and to do what I can to support him, so he has a better world, right? So that would be my little red bra moment.
I love it. That's perfect.
It's so good. Yeah. And it's so hard to pinpoint just one, because, you have them, when you recognize them, sometimes they're, they can be very small depending on the week that you're having.
Sure. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but that is so beautiful. And I mean, he's probably just, in his heart, he's just probably so proud and happy for his mama. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I got really lucky. He's such just an angel, and I just think, like, if we can all look through children's eyes, they don't see bias, they don't see color, they just see other human beings. And so, it's like, read any parenting book, right? It's like, what do they tell you? It's just look beyond all of that. It's amazing when I look at parents and I look at their children, and I'm like, learn from each other. Just learn from your children, right? Or go surround yourself with children. Like, if you go to a park and just watch kids and what they get amazed by, and then you just feel better about yourself, and you're like, why am I getting stressed out? Because 90% of the things that are happening to me, I can't do anything about, right? So being present in the moment, and just, I think those little signs that you're talking about, those little moments, happen a lot more than we notice, because we're so busy with what we need to accomplish, that if we just slow down, and COVID did that, right? We had to slow down, and yep.
Yeah, kids have this, they just have this unwavering curiosity and creativeness, and just ability, like how you said when you were younger, you'd always ask why, but that's something that you still do today, which is fantastic, because as adults, sometimes I think we can become a little bit more aware or protective with asking why and being inquisitive. We don't want to come up nosy or bossy or, whatever it may be, when it's just pure, genuine curiosity. And kids definitely remind us of that, which is awesome.
Yeah. And to check ourselves, to not be like, oh, you shouldn't ask that. Because I think that's where we start to create that teaching with them.
That's right. That's right.
And so just letting them be a kid.
Yeah, there was this one book I read a while ago when he was first born. I think it was called like the no drama approach to parenting, or to discipline, the no drama based approach to discipline. And when I started reading this book, I mean, it was heavy. For me to get through it, I had to take breaks, because it was tapping into what happened to me growing up. And I had to work through that I couldn't get to the end of the book because it was taking me back, and I was like, now I get it. Now I get why I'm this way because of what happened to me when I was growing up, but it's like, that's hard work to go back and really kind of take a look at yourself and say, man, now I get it. Now I get it. It's not my fault. It actually is something that happened to me, and I need to deal with that and work through that. But we beat ourselves up too much over it. I think we're really hard on ourselves, especially women. I think we're really hard on ourselves because of situations that they're not even our fault, but we beat ourselves up for it. And it's an issue, for a lot of us.
Well, I think we need to start this morning hour with you. We'll get in touch with your agent and figure out a way to have morning motivation with you. But yes, so thankful that you joined us tonight and are excited to share all of your information with our viewers and our followers. Where can they find you if you want to share? And we'll make sure we link it up as well. I know you mentioned your website, but as far as social media, where can they follow you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. I usually just use LinkedIn for the most part. And I had somebody say, you got to create these and get out there. I was like, okay, I'll do it, but so I'm on Instagram too. It's too many things. So I would say just go with LinkedIn. That would be the best where you can get to really know who I am and kind of what I'm out there doing. That would be awesome.
Awesome. We'll definitely make sure to do that. And thank you so much for spending your time with us. And a quick shout out again to Summer. Thank you for connecting us because we love our connections.
I know.
Yeah. And one other thing I was just going to say, I totally forgot to mention this because I think you two would love it, is I'm doing this conference in October. It's about the joy, because we were talking about kids, so it just popped into my head. It's the parent's journey. And so it's just about we're going to try to get together a lot of different parents and mothers and fathers and people that have just had kids or adopted kids and have stories about what they've gone through as a parent. And so I'm super excited about it. So hopefully you guys can come to it too. And I would love to introduce you to the founder who's putting that conference on, because he'd be just an amazing person for you both to know as well.
Awesome.
Thank you. That was
more connections.
Yeah.
Well, we end every show with a quote, and while we were going through this, I was thinking of several in my head, about you not knowing your own strength until you had to go through the storm and things like that. But I picked one for you by the wonderful Brene Brown, and we talked about vulnerability tonight, so this is very fitting. But she says, daring leaders who live in their values are never silent about hard things. And I just think that is so perfect for you.
Oh, thank you.
It's just, your story is beautiful, and I wish we had so much more time with you, and I'm excited to follow you on LinkedIn. I won't make you get on all the other platforms. I won't make you do TikTok either, because I don't understand that. So.
All right, please don't. Please don't. Thank you, ladies, so much. I'm truly, truly, truly humbled. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. But thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. We have said it, but we will link all of our information and where to follow us and Sejal. So we're so excited to be back and have our summer series up and running. And, if you are interested in making a connection like Summer did, please feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at The Red Bra Project, or you can go to our website, theredbraproject.com, and we will continue to update you on things going on. So with that, hit the subscribe button and that bell so you get notifications, and we will be back soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.